Welcome to the Out Agenda, coming to an archive.kpfk.org. I'm Rita Gonzalez. Well, in this month's segment of Radio QGLLU, Amado Munoz of Ethical Punk. But before we introduce our guests, we want to start this show by saying that all of us at Radio QGLLU are devastated and concerned about the recent fires in Los Angeles. Each of us loves this city and are deeply affected by the destruction and lives impacted by these fires. Our thoughts are with those facing loss, danger, and uncertainty. We stand in solidarity as we've been since Radio QGLLU was Radio GLLU when it started in 1986. With our resilient communities who have a long history of coming together to support one another during difficult times. Well, we have another segment of Radio QGLLU podcast, a show that takes a deep dive into what the queer, gay, and lesbian Latine community is talking about. I'm Rita Gonzalez.
I'm Lidia Otero.
And I'm Eduardo Archuleta. In today's episode, we're talking with Amado Munoz. Amado is a trans Chicano indigenous individual from South Central Los Angeles, with roots planted in the fashion district by his family who migrated from Mexico. One of his life goals is to create visual impact and spark conversation by challenging the gender binary and toxic culture of masculinity, all while celebrating and adorning his spirit. As a creator and curator of ethical punk, Amado brings attention wherever he goes, never shying away from a stare down and walking through the world with purpose. He has resolved that his very presence is his biggest weapon in fighting against the injustices in the world that often disregard his identity.
Hi, Amado. This is Lidia. And one of the things that popped up in your biography was about being from South Central Los Angeles.
Yes.
So share a little bit with our listeners and tell us why your personal background and why being from South Central is so important to you.
Yes. I think first of all, I'm just gonna say it and start it with the word culture, right? Tradition and and those things that were rooted in my family when they migrated from Mexico to South Central, right? And they planted their roots in the fashion district. And my grandfather is, because he's still alive, retired stitcher. And so he did like Nike stitching for the tennis shoes, and my grandmother was a seamstress. So they came here, planted their roots, 11 children. Fast forward, I'm the oldest of 11. So that is a big household, right? To grow up in. And so what we learned was a lot of the traditional values that were from Mexico, but obviously navigating our own world in this new world from our perspective. So I think a lot of things during that time that I grew up and my grandfather and my grandparents arriving here, I learned how to navigate this place that I found so beautiful in different neighborhoods, in the style, in the individuality. And I think as a young trans kid, that really spoke to me, right? Because I didn't feel seen, but it wasn't at that point about my transhood. It was really about my culture. So I think that kind of laid roots to me figuring out how to navigate my transhood, my neighborhood. So I think that that's why South Central means so much to me, because I was able to kind of figure out how I can survive before I really needed to survive.
And for our listeners that aren't from Los Angeles, what is South Central in relation to Los Angeles? Like, How far is it far? I'm sure
No,
sometimes it
no.
seems
Yeah,
far, but
well,
or is it close? Like what
LA
would you
County, well, we know California is so big, right? Like I
right.
know when I talk to folks in the Midwest, it's like everything's at like hours, 30 minutes away, and we can go from one tip to the other tip, and it's
Mm,
like, we're navigating for 14 hours or so or more,
mm,
right? But LA, so South Central, I'm gonna say it's, a mile, 2 miles away from the center of downtown LA. So I grew up near USC, near the old Coliseum,
mm,
near Exposition Park, right? Near Olvera Street.
mhm,
So, you know what I mean? So everything is miles away from where I grew up. When we were barely building, creating, or coming from those, La Placita Olvera is so known, right? About starting, settling there, right?
mm,
So, all of that coming as a growing up as a child, so I'm seeing it through two perspective, the ones that are migrating and the ones that are flourishing it,
mm,
right? The ones that are coming over and planting the seeds, and the ones that we are the ones that are watering it, right?
mm,
So those two kind of, interpretations that I saw about my city, I'm like, oh my God, I'm like in this, and it's happening. So I don't know. For me, Los Angeles has so much story. We are that place that when you come, you do have someone that can tell you about that corner, that can tell you about that little town, that little city, that little restaurant. And I feel that for my grandparents and for us, it was a beautiful fusion. It was a beautiful moment that we could definitely share stuff because I'm learning from them. So again, it wasn't about my transhood. It was about my neighborhood. It was about Los Angeles.
Oh, spoken like a true Angelino. I love it.
Right?
I
I,
love
I I
it.
feel it in my heart. It's
Oh,
part of who I am. It's part of my soul. So I thank you for acknowledging that.
oh yeah. It's I'm a true Angelino too. So
All right.
yeah. So I have a question. This is
Sure.
Rita. It's talking about you're a curator of ethical punk.
Ethical punk. That's my
What is that?
baby. Oh, it's my baby. Ethical punk has so it merged, right? It kind of transitioned as well as I did. So ethical punk has was my name as an artist. When I would get on stage, ethical punk to the stage. I used to perform throughout the US, and musicals that would never go anywhere, but I performed, when I was 26 and young and vibrant. And so that was my stage name, Ethical Punk. And it kind of resonated with me. It was something that was created by me always feeling like the outsider, right? But meeting people, lovers specifically, who would always say, but you're a good one. Like you're a good punk. And then, that one love that comes to you and it's like, you're ethical, and I'm just like ethical punk. So again, I in my 20s, that was the name that I kind of ran with. Then it evolved to my creative passion because I always felt that my visual impact in people was kind of startling, right? When I was growing up, kind of masculine in what people would think it's a little girl, but I'm masculine presenting, right? So it's like, what do you do with this human, right? So I always felt kind of the outsider. So that's why that name really resonated. So as I transitioned in my life, I transitioned in what I wanted ethical to punk. I still wanted to stimulate people and to call your attention, but I also wanted to bring my culture. Who am I? My Los Angeles culture, right? My Chicano culture, my culture from grandparents who migrated. I'm a first generation. I'm the oldest grandchild from 11 brothers and sisters, right? So it's a lot of power. So when I started feeling like I wanted to claim a little bit more and ethical punk as an artist wasn't working for me, this is when I started noticing a lot of the TikTok trends about brown lipstick, like white girls wearing brown lipsticks, or white girls wearing hoops, or Versace selling huaraches. Ooh, wee! My blood was boiling. And through that passion and that I created ethical punk. And what that was is style, is jewelry, is our hoops. It's those nameplates that we crave so much as kids. Remember when you had Rita, that little name Rita, and you were so excited because your mom bought you. If there was something that our culture has, is that we always save money to buy this one piece of jewelry, right? And what happens with this one piece of jewelry? If we're lucky enough, we're able to give it to someone, right? And so that made it more of a story for me. Like I sell chingona hoops, I sell cabrona. But these words, what I'm trying to do is claim them. As a first generation person, those words had a lot of power and it weren't the best. But now I want to reclaim them. So I wanted to switch this mentality of selling my culture for profit and really selling my culture to the people that would value it, understand it, adorn their spirit with that. We would go out of our house with tracksuits, with t-shirts, with shorts, with chanclas, but we had our little earrings, our little necklace, our rings, and that to me, it's like, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's being able to step out in any way you want, but having some type of armor, which was, oh, your ring is nice. Oh, thank you. That's like, and then you talk about it, right? Some type of, where you can feel safe walking out because there will be a conversation stirred. And even now, as people are wearing my pieces, you don't see a they, them pronoun, they, them in our culture, they, them. What's that? ¿Qué es eso? They, them. Oh, that's how I prefer you to, address me. You open conversation. So with ethical punk, what I'm trying to do is that thing, that ethical, we are of good people. We come of good people. That is what I was taught. So now I want to share those stories through ethical punk by adorning your spirit and shining. And it's not about masculinity and it's not about femininity. It's about how does your spirit feel right now? And I would hope it's the essence of how of your neighborhood, of your traditions, of your culture. And with me, it also happens to be with queerness. That was all a mix of who I was growing up. And that's what ethical punk really is, a statement.
This is Eduardo. In addition to designing and making jewelry, you're also an advocate for trans and queer rights.
Yes,
Tell us a little bit more about that.
absolutely. Just for the record, I'm an emotional person, so it's it might be a little pausing, and so that is some emotion creeping out. But my story is of an immigrant mother who fell in love with my father. My father was immigrant. They fell in love here in Los Angeles, and my mom was the first of 11 kids, and she started taking her brothers and sisters to the Head Start program. Was married to my dad when she was 16. Had my sister and I. So I grew up with it's a typical kind of growing up with your primas, I mean your aunts who are your age. So we're all going to Head Start. And my mom is the only one that can speak English and Spanish, choppy. Growing up in South Central, this was very much a black, neighborhood. And my mom and our whole family was embraced. And so they were like, hey, you speak Spanish to my mom? And she's like, yeah. So she would help them translate. So then I started learning that there's workshops and support groups, right? And my mom's just being part of that as a young mom. And then they tell her, hey, if you take this class in USC, you can get your certificate. We need someone that's bilingual. Fast forward, my mom retired after 37 years of being a Head Start preschool teacher because of love of the neighborhood. So that's just another example of why my love is so deep. We were taken care of. They helped my mom feed us, take care of us because she became a single mom. So then I'm learning about advocacy and I'm learning about stuff through my mom, just seeing her. My mom becomes a social worker. Then I'm navigating something in me that's happening and I don't know what it is. And I think that it's, I'm queer and I think that I'm gay, but I don't like the word lesbian. And so I'm going through this. And so I'm learning through my mom and I'm like, you know what? I've been hearing stuff. Let me do this. So I open the yellow pages and I find organizations because I'm hearing her say, you need a support group, you need resources, and I'm hearing all these words. So then I'm like, I'm a child, or something's happening to me that needs resources, and I couldn't tell anyone. So I started navigating, finding gay centers, organizations. Then I found gay and lesbian, and at that time it was the yellow pages, and you saw the word gay and lesbian. So I at 19 I started attending Bienestar Human Services and it wasn't enough for me. I wanted to do more. So in that, I became a volunteer. And in that, I started working for Bienestar Human Services. And that's where my nonprofit of In Passion being an activist and educating was fueled, but I feel it was fueled by my mother and my grandmother. But then I found something right that really meant a lot, that resonated, which was queer youth, which was I haven't told my mom, but I seem to be okay. I look like this person, and when I say I look like this person, to me, back then, big, masculine, presenting little girls weren't cool. Right? We were just like so that's why it's like interesting because it's really a cultural thing. Then it transitions into your identity, right? Like how do you become you as you're learning and navigating all these things that are coming from you, from your culture, which is, weight loss, all those things that we, looking whiter, oh, you're not that dark, you're not that white, you're flat nose, those things. Man, you're growing up in a Latino culture, in a Mexican American culture. I'm gonna learn tough skin, right? Because so I think the individual love and attacks for my family and the desire to just kind of flourish a little bit more because I've already learned all this. You're making me stand really strong in my neighborhood, and then I'm learning about activism, and I'm learning about Rita Gonzalez and I'm learning about Lydia Otero, and I'm learning about, even the Chicano movement, and I'm learning about all these things, and I'm like, no, that, and like, there's no stories or written documentation of us. So it keeps on sparking me as a person to be in front and not to be silent. I am a trans man. I have an experience as a man, but my experience in my life is as a trans individual, an immigrant from immigrant families, first generations, right? So I think that all of that just fueled the fact that I needed to be in the front lines, that I needed to speak my story, that anything that came from me, whether it be business, whether it be performance, whether it be engaging with folks, it needed to be allowing for change, conversations of change. That was super important to me.
I'm a little misty-eyed here,
Thank you.
Oh
Amado,
gosh.
because you feel like our child, because Rita, Eduardo, and I were there launch when we were launching Bienestar. And so you bringing it up is just very, very touching um, to see like future generation, I mean, younger
To see
generations.
your fruit and your labors, and what an honor.
Yeah, gracias, gracias. I appreciate that. So you've made a nameplate for me.
I
Right?
have
Yeah.
this.
And I feel like when I wear it,
LA
I feel
Tusa?
like I'm making a LA Tusa. Yeah. I feel
Yeah.
like when I wear it, I'm making a statement. I never thought of it as armor, but I'm gonna think about it, recalibrate what my thinking next time I wear it. But it's really, I am making a statement when I wear it. So my question to you is, and you touched a little bit upon it, is there the merging of a brown and queer aesthetic? Do you see it?
Do I see in my
It,
creations?
yes.
Yeah, a queer and brown aesthetic?
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel that first of all, in my brand, yes. But I feel that that aesthetic was I'm again. I'm a procreation of y'all, right? So the brown queer aesthetics has been of those that I've seen march. And what are they wearing? What are they showing? How did they protect themselves? And, as brown individuals, it's different as we navigate. Like I said, I'm telling you that I'm a trans individual who first had to navigate my brownness to stand up for my queerness.
Yeah.
I was there first before the queerness even happened.
Yeah.
Right? So then developing my business, absolutely, it was a fusion because again, I was not gonna allow Versace, Kylie Jenner, all of those folks claiming that this is a new trend to stand on that. This was a brown trend. And so this in the queerness for me, it's like, man, those traditions with the nameplates, those traditions with putting those pieces of statement, like I think it's especially as a trans man, I've never saw my name in a nameplate because I didn't have that, right? Because that wasn't my chosen name. So now that I can create Amado, you know what I'm saying? Like what? What?
Yeah.
How queer and how brown could this be? Because it comes from my brown culture. And I am a queer trans man that was never able to be loud and proud about a name that I chose or that a name that my full name is Amado Presley Munoz. Presley, and I do not mind sharing my old name because I think in education, it doesn't stir any emotions actually because if it wasn't for Priscilla, a beautiful name with a beautiful soul, with a beautiful individual, I would not be here. She protected him, my essence. And it leads me to those to femininity is what protects our culture. Las mamás, las tías, the gay uncles, the feminine energy that embraces us, that still allows us to be cry, to be hugged, and to also stand up for your children, your familia. My grandma was straight up in the hood, standing in front of the cops as the cops are trying to wrangle my uncles and hurt them. Before we knew they were getting hit on public because we saw it on TV. This was happening already. How can I not have my brownness stand up first before my queerness? Right? Because queerness, we're developing, we're figuring it out. We'll probably suppress it. My brownness was so loud, I needed to learn how to protect myself. And then when I figured my company, I'm just like, those are the two things that, like I want to cater to my queer community. I had a HAS. You're familiar with a HAS, right? The convention for educators. I was able to do a pop up there to see doctors of education wanting to use my queer hoops. It's a hexagon type of earring, and in the center says queer. It's a level of class, also regal. It's very simple, but to see the professors and then one coming from Virginia saying, I need my students to see me because she's a counselor, right? Because we're trying to figure out how do we navigate telling these kids without, you know what I mean? But we can do it by presenting who we really are authentically. And our jewelry and our wear really triggers those conversations, challenging conversations for community, brown and queer. Those things that we don't want to call, because queerness is not easy to be talked out in brown communities. It has to be a fusion for me. It has to be. I have to collide them.
So, how do we get your jewelry? I mean,
Yes,
where's it? Yeah,
I
please.
have my website, www.ethicalpunk.com. You can read a little bit more of my story and who I am. It's all LA, it really represents my city. It really talks about my queerness. All my models are queer or trans, non-binary. I highlight that. I'm about undocumented folks, and it says that I'm about Black Lives Matter, and I'm about that. So there's a lot of education when you go into my site. So I would ask folks before they look at the jewelry to really look at who I am, right? Because I really pride myself in being vulnerable. And also you can look me up on ethical punk underscore, which is my IG account. And right now I'm also on TikTok. I just started my TikTok, which is ethical underscore punk. So I'm trying, I just turned 50. So navigating social media is not my strong suit. But I'm trying. I'm trying to figure it out. But those are the three platforms right now that I'm you can find me at.
Well, you've answered a lot of our questions, and I just went on your website. It's really, really awesome
Oh,
looking at
awesome.
it. So,
Thank
yeah.
you.
So
Look
while
at
we're
doing
sitting here,
work and
yeah, I just
interviewing.
went right on it and saw something that I may want. You never know.
Oh, awesome.
So we're in a different era right now. This is 2025, and it seems
Woo,
like this is going forward. A lot's going to be happening to all of us. It's
to
going to
all of
impact
us.
every one of us. But what advice do you have, if you have any, for young trans folks right now?
What I'm finding helpful for me, as a very out trans person that knows that I can be hurt, in any given moment. Any visible queer person, gay person, lesbian, non-binary person, to give yourself the space to feel, but also community. We've thrived this hard because we've had communities. All three of you that I have the honor to be in front of started this by coming together, right? By fighting together, by navigating your life, knowing that you weren't alone. And so what I feel that the time is to really count on each other, right? And I feel sometimes we as humble people, brown people, Latino people, people of color, we're very humble. And so it's hard for us to be like, hey, how are you doing? Or I don't want to impose, or be here and be like, no one's calls me. But what should we do? We should be proactive as well. Pick up the phone, because we know that we have people in our community that have shown us love. We don't know how to receive sometimes, and maybe I'm speaking for myself, but all I'm asking right now for people to be safe is to really count on each other, right? Really count on it, really check in on each other. Have plans of safety. I never look, I'm a brown boy from South Central, trans first generation. People talking to me about safety plans was like, what you talking about safety plans? But to be honest with you, when I don't hear from a friend in a week or something, I start getting worried. And I think just knowing that someone is okay, that they need their time, that, those things we need to honor. So just knowing to honor yourself as well as to honor others with emotions and feelings, have community, and really protect yourself. And what does that mean? Really have conversations and sit with, how do we protect each other, and visit and visit and visit venues, and support your community, and celebrate with them whenever they're going to have it. Do not be alone. Find your people. Find your people, because it really feels good. That would be the only advice I can give right now, in a state where we're all suffering for various reasons, where we're all looking on how to survive these next 4 years.
That's beautiful advice,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Amado. Thank
Thank you.
you. Yeah,
Oh,
very
thank you.
touching.
And I do want to thank you very much for joining us here at
For sure, for
Radio.
sure.
Very much.
I
Thank you.
Yeah,
Gosh,
it was
man,
very, 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 very touching and like
And
emotional.
thank you so much for
My
Nos
joining us.
vemos,
nos
Amado.
vemos. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
Bye.
love
Thank
you
you.
too.
We'd like to thank our guest, Amado Munoz from Ethical Punk. Thanks for listening to the Radio QGLLU. I'm Rita Gonzalez.
I'm Lidia Otero.
And I'm Eduardo Archuleta.
Like us on our Facebook page or email us at theoutagenda@gmail.com. And have a wonderful week. And remember that being out is the first step to being equal. Now stay tuned for This Way Out.